You know what? Let's let you, Love. You talk about some of the toxic traits that I had in our relationship. Some of the things that I would do. I feel like a pinata. I feel like a pinata.
I don't know if I can do this to you.
Why don't you intro this one?
Okay. Let me just do it. I don't need instructions. It makes me more nervous.
Do your thing, Love. That's
Okay.
your camera.
Welcome back, everybody, to Who Can Relate. I got your host here, the one, the only, my one and only, Mr. Davis.
Oh, thank you, Love. No one's ever introed Who Can Relate before. That was dope. I should have that as like a button that I hit.
Yeah.
Like enjoy the podcast. We have that. I need a Who Can Relate button.
You do.
Yeah. Well, host.
I called you the host.
We are co-hosting.
Okay, co-hosting. Home series. Here we are.
Home series. We're back on the couch. And what are we going to be talking about today? Per popular demand.
Toxic relationships.
How to go from toxic to healthy.
Yes.
And what that looks like.
Yes.
And little do the people know.
We were once in a toxic relationship.
Because I was toxic.
I wasn't going to say it first.
It's all good. Here on Who Can Relate, I own my fill in the blank. So we've created this outline. Something that I wrote that I really want to make sure everyone understands. With this episode, we just wanted to be really transparent with you guys. I know the highlight reel on Instagram looks great. We do a very good job of creating that type of content, and it is real. It is pure.
Not on purpose.
Right. It's our life.
It's also very natural that no one's going to post the bad moments.
Yeah, of course. But we just wanted to make sure you guys understand the background story more in detail of us. So we were considered to have a toxic relationship in the past. I love that we can both smile now if you guys are watching. If you're listening, here's the laugh. And more importantly, we're able to talk about it now. Mm-hmm. And we're able to find those lessons that we learned and give them to everyone listening and watching. So we hope this helps. It definitely helped us. And yeah, so let's get into it, Love. Let's start off with, have you ever been in a toxic relationship before? This one.
I think no.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is I have never fought with someone the way I fought with you.
Yeah, sadly. What else?
But I have been cheated on, so I feel like that's also toxic.
Yeah.
And with that came gaslighting, which falls under toxic.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like how you and I fought in the beginning of our relationship, I have never experienced that before.
Yeah. So the answer is no.
No.
But besides me. Okay. Well, for me, I definitely have been in toxic relationships before, primarily because I was the one who was toxic. So where I went, toxicity went, including this relationship. Some of the notes that I wrote down as far as bringing in toxicity into our relationship.
I want to ask you, though, just before we start off, did you know you were bringing in a toxic patterns into our relationship?
Not at all.
Did you know you had toxic patterns?
No.
Did you know your last relationship was toxic?
1,000% yes.
But you had no fault in that? Or you didn't think you had any?
I didn't while I was in it. And then I think I came to the realization that, oh, wait, I think I have a lot to do with this towards the end. So yes, and some of the reasons why I didn't know I was toxic was because it was normal to me. I like normalized toxicity. I saw it growing up. Everyone knows by now you repeat what you don't repair. So I was repeating the toxicity from both my mother and my father. So it was normal for me. It was normal for me to have these explosions of arguments. It was normal for me to take these like haymakers of punches, not literally, with my words, you know, and to like hurt people. Not that, I mean, but I was hurt people, right? So that was all normal to me. And what was your other question? Some of them?
Did you know that you were coming into our relationship toxic?
Yeah. So I've been very vocal and transparent on Who Can Relate about when I met you, how I had just started the early stages of my growth process, my evolved process. And I've always said, you know, when I met you, I might as well have said, hi, I'm Justin. Nice to meet you. I'm under construction. That's what I should have said. And, you know, but very, again, transparent with you that I was becoming aware that I was toxic, becoming aware that I had a lot of things I needed to repair. And still, I didn't know to the magnitude of my toxicity. I was like, okay, I got some things to work on. And then throughout like our first year, for sure, I was like reminded definitely monthly, maybe even weekly on like how much more work I had to do and how much, you know, deeper I had to dig.
At any point in that process, were you ever in denial initially?
I think I understand your question, but I'm going to try to answer it in how I felt. So I wasn't necessarily in denial, but I was pointing the finger still. I wasn't pointing at you.
Acknowledge.
I wasn't ready to take accountability. And then I would check myself, you know, not to put words in your mouth, but what was one of the things you told me early on in our relationship that helped you when we were long distance?
Well, before that, I think that I had a hard time initially processing what was even happening because I've never experienced that in a past relationship or even just in my childhood upbringing. I never saw my mom yell or get like so angry to the degree that, you know, things were uncomfortable in our house. So that was different. And I think initially I also took a lot of things personally.
Right.
And I tried to reflect within myself and try to see what I could do better to avoid situations like that. But I think for me, to answer your question, for me, it would take you a while to kind of come around. And when you finally did, that allowed me, I guess, to just hold space for you because I knew that it was something that you were acknowledging. I knew it was something that you were so badly wanting to change about yourself. And I saw that you were trying, and in ways that, you know, not just coming correct, but you were digging deeper.
Yeah. Just for the people listening and watching, let's give a timeline as to, you said it would take you a while. What was a while?
Sometimes it was like over a week.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I wanted you to say that, because you know, a while, maybe a day or two, and it'll kind of full circle throughout the episode. But, you know, I started at like a week, maybe a week and a half sometimes. And then it got down to maybe 5 days, and then it got down to 3 days, and then it got down to, you know, so on and so forth. And now it's very rare that things linger on past like a day or two. Very rare.
Yeah. And what I think helped us in those moments is we were long distance. So it was easy to give you that time and space. And I think too, with me giving you that time and space and not like being in your face, like nagging at you, it allowed you really time to self-reflect.
Yeah.
And I wanted that from you because I didn't want me to be the one that was constantly guiding you to the answer, and I wanted you to figure it out on your own, and you did.
Yeah. And if people are like, how did he, you know, I think I knew very early on that you were going to be the one as long as I didn't F it up, basically. And so you were the light at the end of my tunnel, along with knowing that I just needed to do this once and for all for myself. And again, you were just going to be the bonus, really, you know, and I was grateful and thankful that you were able to hold space which we can talk about a little bit later as to how you were able to. People are fascinated with how you were able to hold space. So I'll try to really hone in on that in a little bit here. So you mentioned how difficult it was for you to be in now your first toxic relationship. The other thing that we were writing down earlier was how I determined that I was in a toxic relationship and I was repeating these patterns and continuing to take, the same me into a new one. I think, again, that's kind of just all I knew, as I mentioned, from childhood. And I remember there were a couple times where you and I would argue and you would tell me, I've never argued with someone like this before. I've never had these type of blowouts. And I used to say, I didn't sign up for this, So like you and I would have our own little one-liners. And now I realize, like, God, that just must have been so frustrating for you. This was new for you. This was a lot of it was new. We still have to do a long distance relationship episode, but here I was, I moved across country. I moved into your place. You now had to share your space, your things, and you weren't technically ready for me to move in when I did. Now it's a toxic relationship, which was the first for you. On top of everything else I just mentioned, in comes me, not really fully aware that I was the toxic one. We had a lot of stuff going on in the beginning, a lot. And that was kind of the real wake-up call for me to be like, dude, it's you. You are the toxic one. And here's where it was difficult. I talked about this with Gabby on Rediscovering Me. I said, when you normalize that type of behavior, that type of fighting and toxicity, you don't see, and or mainly for me, I didn't believe that there's another way. And you really helped me understand that, we can communicate without throwing haymakers, right? And I was like, huh? What do you mean? So let's talk about that a little bit.
I think too, what really helped with our dynamic is you came in with the fire.
Yeah.
And I came in with the water. And I think what happens is a lot of people in relationships, when they get fire thrown at them, they throw back with fire. And then it's like this big explosion, just going back and forth, and you're just in this vicious cycle.
Yeah.
But for me, I was really able to diffuse your anger and kind of give you the space that you needed to cool off rather than just like adding to it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's another thing that just really helped with us.
Yeah. And I mean, my last relationship, which was the most toxic one I've ever been in, if I was the fire, she was the fuel. Not only were you the water, but you were the extinguisher, you were the diffuser, all the above. And thank God you were, because it calmed me down a lot. I might not have given you the satisfaction of knowing that you were the reason why. But
just burped.
And it it's hard to argue with someone who's not arguing back. It's hard to fight with someone who doesn't want to fight, so that really helped me. And it was a nuance for me. I always talk about attachment styles on here, and that's where your secure attachment style really came to shine in situations of conflict, which was so helpful. I think the other thing too is I remember telling myself when I would be by myself, because we would, separate after the argument, or when we were long distance, we wouldn't be talking at that particular time. I remember just replaying exes telling me the same things you were telling me and being like, damn, how is it that these girls don't know each other from anything and they're saying the same things about me, man? Like, what's going on? So really for me, digging deep and starting to do other work was a catalyst for me. Maybe we can give everyone more of a timeline as well as how.
I was just gonna say, I saw like the I guess roller coaster of emotions that you went through. I think that I remember seeing the denial part, or like the lack of accountability part, and then I saw the projecting part where you were trying to put it on me as to why certain things were happening, and and then I just saw like the
Transition.
yeah, like where you started just really digging deep in yourself and, reading books and talking to people that you looked up to and admired and building new friendships with those same people.
Yeah.
And restructuring your circle and getting close
Yeah.
to people, spending the time with the right people,
Mm-hmm.
and digging deeper in therapy, seeking more therapy.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like with being in a toxic relationship or being in a healthy relationship, when you are in a healthy relationship, doesn't mean that you can't get into a toxic relationship. Like
Yeah.
it can happen because there's so many things that lead up to that.
Yeah. And you got to stick with the work.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you work out. If you just stopped working out, you're going to gain the weight back. You're going to lose the body that you crafted and created. It's the same with,
Having a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's like you can fall off track and you can slowly but surely get to an unhealthy lifestyle
Yeah.
by the decisions you make and, the things you do.
Yeah. And how often you are consistent, with the work. And so you said, from going from toxic now to healthy, it was primarily when we really dove into therapy together,
Mm-hmm.
marital therapy. What was that transition like? I'll let you take this, love, because you were the healthy one. What was that transition like for you, and how did you feel? How much relief did you have? Like, what were some of your emotions going from toxic to healthy?
I mean, again, I watched the evolution of you happen. And I feel that the more you started digging deeper in yourself, you started slowly opening yourself up. Mm-hmm. So you may have been hearing all the things that people have been telling you for years, but now you were finally able to really receive it in the ways you hadn't before. And I think that's from you really allowing yourself to be open to, what people were telling you. And I think that it was good because I knew that you always had that in you to get to that level. So finally seeing and witnessing you come to those levels, it just like took so much weight off my plate, off like everything that like was really kind of weighing our relationship down. Just like I still remember the day you walked in from your solo
June 2020.
Yeah, your solo session with our therapist, and you like it's almost like you unlocked a safe that had just all the answers. And just seeing how excited you were to even have those answers, because I'm sure like as much as it lifted a weight for me, it probably lifted a weight for you as well.
100%.
And just seeing that happen, and then just like feeling like it wasn't something that, although I was a part of it, it was something that you really led yourself to. And that was like more special because like, I think like every time you're in like a relationship, like sometimes you want to give your partner the answers, but you want them to come up with it on their own, because a sincere apology where they are saying all the things that you wanted them to say without you having to say it for them. And then they're like, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It just means so much more. Yeah. And so I think that having you come in that day was that moment for me.
Yeah. And as you said, it means so much more. And it also is sustainability. Mm-hmm. I use the analogy about when someone can create something from within on their own, that's what's going to last, because should the problem arise again, they know how to get that back because they're the source. It's like when you're in school, at least for me, when I was in school, I used to cheat my test. And the analogy here is if my friend who was smarter than me in this class wrote out the cheat sheet for me and gave it to me, and I'm cheating on the test, right? And I pass and he passes. And the next day the teacher comes in and he's like, guys, my dog ate the papers. We got to do the test again. And I don't have that cheat sheet. I'm going to fail. Mm-hmm. And the teacher could be like, you got an A yesterday and you got an F today. Mm-hmm. What the hell happened? Yeah. Well, I didn't come up with the answers on my own. It's the same with this situation. If it weren't for me coming up with the tools, right, to be able to pull out of the tool bag when necessary, and vice versa for you, I'm sure there's a lot of tools that you created as well. Mm-hmm. That's what's going to last. That's what's going to make or break a situation. But let's talk about, I know that the umbrella right now is when did it go from toxic to healthy, but I do want to talk about some more toxic stuff. Okay?
I was just going to say we should get into some of the things that you did that were toxic aside from
why don't you pull
way
out
we
your screenshot stuff? Let's talk about some of the things. God, sometimes I'm like way too transparent for these people. Jesus. Okay, well, this is tough. I don't mind being transparent and vulnerable with everyone. It's just hard because I hate reliving that version of me. So bear with me, but I know this will help out people, so I'm down to be the sacrifice. You know what? Let's let you talk about some of the toxic traits that I had in our relationship, some of the things that I would do. I feel like a pinata.
I don't know if I can do this to you.
Oops, wrong one. But yeah, just go ahead.
I think gaslighting was one. Obviously, we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Keeping a scorecard.
Yep.
Lying.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, some of the things that when you start bringing that into a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
it then started making me a little toxic because I was, as much as I built myself up, I started to resent you for some things.
Yeah.
And resentment is part of a toxic relationship. When you're holding on to resentment, when you're holding on to the past, when you're walking on eggshells, like that all gives into the toxic. All gives into to a toxic relationship.
Yeah. Toxicity.
Toxicity.
I know.
It's like a tongue twister.
It is a tricky one. Toxicity is tricky.
Yeah.
Say that.
Toxicity. I can't even say it.
But yeah, you're totally right. And that's, that's what I mean by this is hard for me to talk about because it's hard to relive that, putting you through that, knowing that my bad patterns and bad traits were rubbing off on you was not okay.
Yeah, and that's the problem with a lot of people in relationships like that is if you don't recognize it, it can become a vicious cycle between you and your partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
so let's start with gaslighting.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's just dive into each one.
Maybe gaslighting and lying because they kind of go hand in hand, in some, or at least in what you were doing. So
the lying stuff, when you're having friends of the opposite sex and you're kind of new into a relationship, you got to vet out and weed out, in my opinion, in our agreement, in our relationship, if you've slept with that person of the opposite sex, they're going to be removed from your life. So I did all that. And then I was going to meet up with a friend of the opposite sex who I had no sexual relations with. But I felt like my ways of telling these white lies or all the way lies, whatever you want to call them, I was used to lying from a child, little things to my mom. And deep down, it's just probably like, why would you even lie about something like that? Even Adriana does that sometimes. Like when she was out here last year, it was about water.
Yeah, drinking water.
Yeah, it's like, did you drink your water? Yeah, and it's like, well, you didn't because your thermoflask is still full. It's like, why would you lie about it? Yeah. But that was me as well. So I continued that into adulthood. And so I would lie and I said, oh, I'm going to go, whatever, for a hike or casting or whatever. And I would go to lunch with my friend of the opposite sex. And lo and behold, once you caught me, you were like, why would you
lie? And then it makes it look like you're doing something wrong. And then you're defending yourself because you didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
And then projecting it on me for feeling how I'm feeling. But I'm like, I remember the moment that one of the times that happened, because there was more than once.
Sadly.
You would make me feel like I was in the wrong for calling you out on that, which is part of gaslighting.
Yep.
And then I would actually feel bad. And I'm like, why do I feel bad? This is like not cool, because if I check in with myself and I told you this as much as, cause you would defend in the sense of, well, I'm not cheating on you, so I'm not doing anything wrong. And I was like, actually you're wrong, because I value someone being honest to me just as much as I value someone being faithful.
Right.
And that's the problem, is you're not being honest.
Yeah.
So it took a while before
Yeah.
but now it's so funny, because I said this to you the other day, is like, I now am friends with one of the girls that he did that with, and she's like the sweetest person, and
Yeah.
I hands down can say there was never anything between them. And the fact that he felt the need to lie is just like beyond me.
Yeah, it's kind of beyond me. I'm going to try to explain it. I know there's a lot of guys out here who've done this. There's a large part of me, and primarily maybe from triggers in the past relationships that I've been in, but there's a large part of me that has a hard time trusting a woman that I'm with when she's like, you can tell me anything. You can be honest. Like, you know, I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to hold it over your head. And I'm like, yeah, but there's always like a catch for me in my head. And so I'm like, although I should be totally honest with you and tell you I'm going to meet up with blank to have lunch, you know, I've cleaned out, you know, all the friends that were more than just friends. I should be able to have that dialogue with you. But I was just like, yeah, but what if she thinks maybe there was more, and then I got to explain. And it's just better. I hate to say this. What she doesn't know won't hurt her. This was my thought process. So I would lie. I would gaslight. And I would try to weasel my way
and
out of these stupid, unnecessary, untruthful moments.
And that's the worst. Like when somebody lies to you and then they back it with gaslighting at you, it's like the worst feeling, because it's like you at some point when you sit alone with yourself, you know that you lied. So you know I have every right to be upset. The fact that you want to like turn this around on me and make me seem like I'm this crazy one is like crazy.
I know. And I've apologized several times before, honey. I'm apologizing again in front of the people. I hope that was worth it to some man or woman or whoever's watching. Listening.
That it all goes back to communication. Like you said, like you could have just communicated those things. And I think that a lot of times people hold on, or they focus on the innocence of the action, that they are not considering what the action could make somebody, what their partner could feel because of that action. So I think that like, just because you're not doing anything wrong doesn't mean it's not going to make somebody feel a different way. And I think that the fear behind that for you is like, I'm afraid that she's going to voice how she feels, and then I'm not going to be able to go, and I'm not ready to be controlled in that kind of way. And it's not even control. It's just a compromise, which is what a relationship is.
Right.
So just being able to communicate what you're doing, why you're doing it, and your partner being able to, receive that and just really be honest about her feelings, whether they're serving to you or not, and then just finding a way to kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah. Really well said, honey. And I wish I would have known that, even though you probably gave that to me before. I wish I would have listened and actually believed you back then. Okay. Let's talk about keeping score, because this is something that, is still kind of revolving in our relationship. I grew up with a lot of keeping score, from watching it to, repeating it. And there's a quote that you found that says, here, actually, what the hell? What? You can read it, honey.
So this is all relative to keeping score. It says, if your partner claims to have forgiven you for something, but looks for any moment to bring it back up and use it as a weapon against you, they are more focused on hurting you back than healing and moving on. That's powerful.
Yeah.
There's so much truth behind that.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate.
Can you? Can you relate, babe?
Because, let me see here. I was definitely more focused on hurting you as opposed to healing and moving on. And when I say you, I don't mean like you, Shay. I mean like whoever I was with.
I think maybe hurting someone is not the right, that's so strong, but maybe it was more of a protective
Yeah, that's better.
shield that you were putting up.
Yeah. Yeah. And even more than that too, because you're totally right. I was more focused on protecting my heart and not getting hurt or not being abandoned again, as opposed to not respecting your feelings, not respecting your heart and your emotions and your just overall, you know. So I was definitely, my priorities were off and they were selfish, definitely selfish. But when you keep score with someone, how does that feel? Because again, this is something you never dealt with either.
Yeah. I think some of the stuff that I would feel was just not enough. Like, I felt like you were constantly trying to point a finger at me and highlight my negative reel rather than my positive reel.
Yeah.
And it just made me feel, you know, and that's when I went through the emotions where as secure as I entered the relationship, there was a part that I became very insecure. And I had to, again, check in with myself and know, you know, I got to a point where I was like, you know what, actually, as personal as I want to take this and as much as it makes me feel sad that he would say these things, this isn't even about me. And I can, when I really like look at my relationship with you and what I bring to the table, I'm confident to say that, like, and as much as you were like pointing out those flaws, like I would allow them to get to me for a second, but then I would just know, like, actually that's like, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm not going to be perfect. That's like impossible. But as long as I'm moving in the direction that I'm moving, like I'm confident in who I am in this relationship. And if he can't see that, if he can't appreciate that, that has nothing to do with who I am.
Yeah, and I love that you said that, and I really hope, especially the women are listening, because that to a man is so attractive, and it's intimidating to the wrong ones, but it's very attractive to the right ones. And that is one of the biggest attractions that I had to you, was how sure you were of your self-worth, of your value system. And I bring all that up because I realized later on, and obviously worked on it to not repeat it, I realized that I was stripping you of that. You know, subconscious. It's back to that quote of, they're more focused on hurting you than healing and moving on. And I, again, not that I was trying to hurt you, but this is just, you know, the old patterns, and realizing that I was stripping away all that, like, killed me. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. This strong, beautiful woman, like, I'm not lifting her up. I'm bringing her down. I'm pulling her down. That is not what I'm about. That's not what I want to happen for my daughter. And I definitely don't want it to happen to my wife. And that's when the vulnerability and transparency really started, because I knew that ultimately I was hurting you to protect my heart. And then I realized, well, I have to protect my heart for a lot of things in life, but not with my wife, not with my fiance before, you know. And that was a very difficult, still is a transition that I'm going through.
Yeah, I remember one time that you came home and it was a white lie that you did, trying to, you know, just protect myself and protect you.
Was it when I was playing the saxophone?
No. No, it wasn't.
Just making sure. Because I will say, those white lies.
That was a great white lie.
Those white lies, plural, for 10 months came in handy.
Yes.
Lying my ass off.
Yeah.
Had to use it for the good.
It was one of, I can't remember. It was one of the times you came home, you lied about something. I found out about it. And I think, you know, we had a really heart-to-heart conversation. And I told you, I said, listen, like, if you still have stuff in your system that you want to get out, like, by all means, like, go do that, but don't involve me in this, you know. And I think that was a moment that, you know, really allowed you to open up and really dig deep, because you probably for a quick second was like, oh shit, I'm about to lose her. And she's like completely fine to walk away from this right now in this moment and not even be mad at me about it. And I remember that's when you told me that, you know, you've been doing this since you were a little kid, and it's like you're realizing that it's something that you do have to fix, you want to fix. You were very emotional about it. And in that moment, I saw the genuine like response that you had to that. And that's when I decided that I wanted to hold that space for you.
Yeah. I remember that moment, and I'm just now realizing too, a moment to celebrate in this regard. In the past, I've been given that ultimatum from a partner. And instead of being vulnerable and transparent like I was with you, my ego and pride took over. And I perceived you as a threat. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, you're not going to threaten me. Fine. Then, then I'm out. I would self-sabotage because I was too focused on protecting my heart. Mm-hmm. And fast forward to the moment you just brought up, I don't even remember consciously turning on that switch in my head. Now I realize I must have been so exhausted from lying.
Or it could have been delivery too.
Yeah.
Where it allowed you to receive it.
Totally. And timing. You know, delivery plus timing equals results. That's a new gem. I don't know. But
JD's gems.
There it is.
Oh, wait.
See?
Damn it. Wait, no. I don't want that one either. No, I wanted the... No. Yeah.
Okay.
Another JD's gems. Get used to this board.
Yeah. And so thank God I did, you know, and it's also a testament to how at that particular moment, subconsciously, how I felt about you. You know, it was like my heart came out, not my mind. In that particular moment, because I remember breaking down and just surrendering, kind of like I give up, man. Like this is so draining for me. It's so hard to live this lie, you know, this facade, and to continue these bad patterns. And I also like delegated to you, like, I need your help in this. You know, thank you for calling me out. Thankfully I was able to receive it. You know, but that moment was definitely a revelation for me and for us.
And the change never happens overnight. It's always a process. I mean, that wasn't the last time that you lied or gaslighted, you know, but things got better over time for sure.
Yeah. Let's go into more ways of being toxic. Let's talk about, as we wrote down, how I would dismiss your feelings. How I would project my insecurities.
JD's way or the highway?
My way or the highway. You know, let's talk about some of that. I'm sure there's a lot of women, you know, and men. I'm sorry. But really quick. Guys, fellas, I see you. I appreciate you. I'm happy you're here. A lot of guys are like, hey, man, I know you always address the women. I'm like, my bad. I need to be more conscious of that. Yeah. I just know we've gotten a lot of requests, a lot of messages on, can you guys talk about toxic relationship? How do you go from toxic to healthy? So it's been from a lot of women. But guys, if you are man enough, if you are mature enough, if you are vulnerable enough to admit that this is resonating with you because you are this or you've been this and you want to work on it, take your notes. So, but from the woman here, honey, why don't you let them know how it felt to be with someone who was very much so my way or the highway. I was very much so, I would project my insecurities, my emotional insecurities, and my bad patterns onto you. And then also how the way I would fight and dismiss your feelings, and the hell with your perspective, because it doesn't matter.
It didn't.
And also, honey, really quick, how you felt like you weren't enough.
Well, I kind of talked about that, I feel. No?
Okay.
Didn't I? Kind of.
Well, maybe like everything that you were doing still wasn't enough, and how draining that was. But but yeah, whatever you want. Pick of the litter. It's like a buffet of my horrible flaws.
I feel like you're did you ever watch that show where you dunk somebody in the water? Like they're sitting in a hot seat and then
yes, that's me. Or like you got slimed on Nickelodeon when you were a kid. Yeah.
I feel like that's you. Wow, to be in a relationship with someone that you just feel dismissed by, or you're walking on eggshells, you're not comfortable with addressing your innermost true feelings. That was really, really tough. Really tough. But I think that what helped me is just, again, like, you coming around on your own and me giving you that space to come around on your own instead of throwing, jabs back at you in any kind of way. Yeah. I really just kind of allowed you to sit with how you were being.
But how? And what were you going through in those moments? How were you able to hold that space?
I think because I had confidence and I was secure within myself. So I knew that if you didn't come through correct, what was I losing?
And how, I know it's years in the making, but if you can kind of bullet points, how did you get to that level of self-confidence, self-awareness, knowing that you wanted me, but you didn't need me?
Probably just having, self-love and having myself aligned with my desires and values and what I felt I deserved. I think that just being secure in myself, really.
I'm only asking this stuff. I'll have to do like a formal announcement coming up, but a consultation service was created kind of by a lot of the audience. So many messages been coming into both of us, and I was trying to get to everybody, and this is something I really want to do full time. And so I created a consultation service. And so I had a consultation this morning. And one of the things that we're trying to work on is building this woman's, confidence, but mainly getting her to find her voice. I want to talk about that because there was a lot of times where I remember you used to tell me, like, I would be so good at manipulating and gaslighting and finessing the conversation to take away your train of thought, where you would just be like, I don't even remember what I was saying or what we're talking about here, but I'm on this roller coaster. I'm getting whipped left, right, front, center. Like, what is happening? You just get me off the ride. And how I would strip you from your voice, how I would dismiss your feelings, how I would get you to suppress your feelings to the point where the only way you got them out was by journaling. Mm-hmm. Help everyone out, honey, with that.
I think, well, number one, I've never been a confrontational person.
Yeah.
So I think that as much as I was suppressing my feelings by not expressing them to you, I was still having my ways of, letting them out, whether it was journaling, which is really important because what you don't want to do is just completely suppress your feelings.
Right. And
you're not either talking to a friend or a therapist or journaling. And I think I still found ways to outlet how I was feeling. But it was really shitty that I couldn't express how I was feeling with you and feel like you were receiving it on a level of compassion and understanding the way I was receiving how you were feeling. Yeah. And that was a roadblock for me with you and it was just like the biggest challenge. And I really had to just kind of hold that space. Why I held that space, I think I saw that you were trying. I saw that you were truly confused within yourself and you just didn't know, like you did not have that mental capacity to get to the level that I was on yet.
Sorry, really quick, honey. I'm having a moment right now. I remember we were in the kitchen and I remember you said something along those lines, like you don't even have the mental capacity to understand what you're doing right now, how you're acting and what you're saying, that like, I don't even know what to tell you. This has nothing to do with me. And I remember being so infuriated inside, like, oh, you think you're better than me? I was just like, oh, yeah, but deep down, I was like, damn, she's right. Like, this is so far gone for me that I don't even recognize it. And I remember thinking, like, I know what she's saying. I don't know how to understand it, but I know that there's a lot of truth to what she just said. And now I realize that, God, there was just so many times where I would be doing the same old me in fights and I would look at you, and you would almost like it was an infomercial that you were like waiting to skip the ad. Like you were just like, when is this is the 5 seconds up yet? Like, when are you done? Kind of thing, you know, like when are we going to be back to the show? And I was like, ain't this you know what I mean? Like, I remember so many of those moments, and God, kudos to you, and so much respect, admiration, appreciation, gratitude. I can go down the list, love, of how I feel about you now, and thankfully you were able to be in those moments, because if you would have continued to have been the fuel to my fire, we would not be here.
Yeah.
Let me correct that statement. You, I'm sure, would not be here. I probably would stick around because that was normal for me. You would have been like, you need to get out. You know what I mean? So I'm just so happy that you were constantly able to hold your ground. One of the things, again, today during the consultation, I was telling her was you have to learn how to say no to people without explaining yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I remember also trying to come up with like a dummy down version of
okay. Okay. Listen. Player, you gonna let mommy do this to your boy? A dumbed down version so that I could better understand how much of an idiot I was being.
Because I remember we were having, Justin used to hate when I would say that we were having two different experiences
on the same event.
Yeah. And he's like, how is that even possible? So I'm like, it's very much possible. We're two different people. We have two different upbringings. I'm like, imagine we drive down a street together, and, you know, my background is real estate and houses and all of that. And your background is landscape and plants and all of that, right? So we drive down the same exact street. And after we drive down this street, I point out, I'm like, yeah, babe, that house with the red door and blah, 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 all this, like the Spanish style. And you're like, there was no red door. There was a juniper tree, but there was no red door. I'm like, no, there was a red door. And you're like, no, there wasn't. So it's just like, it goes to show, like, we're driving down the same street. You're seeing the plants and the flowers and the trees, and I'm seeing the architect and the style of the house and the color of the doors. It doesn't mean I'm wrong, you're right. We're just having two different experiences. And when I used that analogy, did that help you? Or were you still like...
Your dumbed down version did make sense. No, but that's, in all seriousness, that's so real. And that was the first time I really heard someone tell me that, you know, we're having two different experiences in the same event. Because, like, I used to respond, what the hell are you talking about? This is the same event. There's one experience. Like, what?
And that's where you were dismissing me. And I had to, you know, I knew that he wasn't dismissing me on purpose. I knew it was just because he didn't have the mental capacity to understand what was really happening. And I think that's what allowed me to hold space for you. Because I'm like, wow, this man really genuinely does not see that there's another side.
Yeah, genuinely is the word. I legit didn't. I remember walking away like, what the hell is she talking about? Yeah. And that's because I used to argue in the sense of, like, I would do everything I could with my salesman ways to get you to understand my perspective.
And I would.
And you would. And you'd be like, no, that makes so much sense. Yeah. And I was like, good talk.
I totally understand, but this is where I was coming from.
Yeah. and I was like, so I would be like, you understand, right? You're like, yeah. And I'd be like, cool.
Then why are we still talking?
Good talk. See you out there.
Or you would say, then if you understand, why did you do it?
Yeah.
And I was like, because that wasn't my intention.
I know. I remember, like, so I feel like there were a couple of times, maybe I'm just making it up, but might as well have been the truth, where I would, like, walk away from you being like, cool, good, resolved. And you'd be like, okay, my turn. I'd turn around like, huh? What do you mean your turn? You have an opinion too? You got feelings too? How dare you? You know, like, oh God, it's sad.
I'm
sad.
So happy that was short-lived.
But you know, we laugh now, thank God. But that was real. Mm-hmm. That was so real. I'm sure a lot of people tuning in right now, it is real. If you guys are going through that, we have empathy for you, because it's not funny, and it's not a game. It's extremely frustrating. It's God, challenging is not even the word.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people right now are thinking like, but how do I know if I should be staying like Shay did? How do I know that I can see that it's really even not him or her? It's just, they just don't know another way yet, or right now they don't know another way, anything, honey, that I mean, because I think you alluded to like the work that I was doing consistently and the revelations that I would have. And here's the other thing too, like, if people don't know by now, if you're watching, this is my best friend. If you're listening, I'm looking and pointing at Shay right now. This is my best friend. When you're best friends with someone, you tell them everything. We talked about the saxophone a little while ago. If everyone's new here, I surprised Shay walking down the aisle. I played the saxophone for her, which is like a dream come true. We'll talk about it when we talk about our wedding. But the point is I remember when we had a moment after our wedding, and it was just her and I, and the first thing that I unloaded was, oh, babe, I can finally tell you all those times I told you I was going to Target and going to play basketball and going to do this and that. I was taking saxophone lessons. It killed me not to be able to tell my best friend what I was about to do, which is going to be one of the most proud moments of my life, something I'll tell our grandkids. Like, it killed me not to be able to tell you that. And people are like, JD, what the hell are you saying, man? Where are you going with this? Yeah. Here's where I'm going. Are you thinking that too?
Yeah, I'm kind of like, where are you going?
Here's where I'm going. I always communicated and kept you in the loop with what I was doing with the work. Yeah. Every time I'd have a therapy session, I would do my, review with you. Every time I read something in a book, I'd run out of the room like a little kid on Christmas, like, Shay, yo, listen to this, and I learned this, and I came up, man, this makes so much sense now. Like, I always constantly kept you near and dear by my side and kept you in the loop. Like,
and I think for me, what I also, I don't know how I learned this or how I knew to do this, but there's a time and there's a place for everything. And there was, a lot of times that I would see certain things, but you were still, I knew you were still heated and you wouldn't have been ready to receive what I realized is happening. So I would wait for you to kind of come around and really like come around, not just apologizing, but open. Yeah. And when I would see the openness in you is when I would tell you what I, recognize, and you would receive it so well versus if I'm like in the heat of the moment and we're fighting and I'm like trying to tell you exactly what I'm feeling. That's not the right place and the right time.
Yeah. And
it probably wouldn't have been received.
No, it would have been dismissed and it would have been discouraging. I would have been less likely to continue the work. But that's a testament of how well you knew me, how well you knew my love languages, how well you knew
when to speak, when not to speak, not in a controlling way. That sounds so bad. But I do recognize, like, and you always talk about it, when somebody gets really upset, it's almost like there's like the what is that thing in the front of your
the prefrontal cortex.
The prefrontal cortex, when somebody's like really worked up, it's almost like it will block them from seeing clearly. It's almost like they get to a point of blackout. Yeah. And so that is not the time for me to try to, if I say this now, he's not going to receive it. It's probably going to make him more angry versus I rather give it to him when he's a little bit more calm down, collective, calm, cool, and collective. Yeah. And more open to receive it. And I feel like in those moments when I would do that, I would see that you would process it a lot better. Whether you were understanding it, you at least like were able to obtain it.
Yeah. And be open to it. Yeah. But that shows, your patience, because I have failed at that a lot of times. I've knowing, like if you're complaining about work and, my default mechanism is to problem solve, fix it for you so you don't have to deal with this anymore. Yeah. I'm going to save the day. And you're like, dude, shut up. I just need to vent. Yeah. You don't know anything about real estate. Just let me get this out, So, we can all take a page from your book, everyone listening, watching, and myself. just to really be more patient. Like you said, know that there's a time, there's a place. And above all, you can have the greatest message ever to give to someone. But
if your delivery is off, it will never be received.
there you go. Team Davis, man. Anyways, so maybe in full recap here, we went deep into the toxic traits. Maybe let's end here with more of the healthy stuff and how much better it is on this side. As 50 Cent says, the top feels so much better than the bottom. So much better. So now that we're in a healthy relationship, you know what? I have a serious question for you, honey. This was not scripted. Were there any points in our relationship where you were doubting if this was ever going to work? Got you guys.
Ask me again.
No. Go ahead. Rawness.
Absolutely.
How many times roughly? More than 5? Like, were you like, you know what? I'm good.
I don't know if I ever got to that I'm good. I probably got very close to it where I did feel like maybe it wasn't going to work out. Yeah. As much as I was holding space or being patient, I felt like you still had a lot of work to do. And it was turning me into somebody that I didn't want to be. And I think in those moments was when I felt like I don't know if this is going to serve me in the right ways. And it felt very unhealthy for our relationship, let alone for just myself. And I had worked so hard to build myself up to where I was that I didn't want to lose that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think for me, what really got me from toxic to, trying to be as healthy as I can was my ability to finally be vulnerable, to finally be transparent, to finally stop protecting my heart with all my energy and kind of shifting some of that energy to investing in the relationship that I was in.
Yeah.
And also to putting for the first time ever in all my years of relationships, the first time ever putting both feet in instead of one foot in, one foot out.
And the thing with you, when you talk about being vulnerable, it's weird because I always felt from day one, our initial conversation, that you were a very vulnerable person, but where you lacked the vulnerability was when we were at indifferences. That is when I needed you to be more vulnerable than ever, because that's when it was more raw and it wasn't a facade of vulnerability.
Yeah, it wasn't like a scripted
Yeah.
vulnerability. Well, I can tell you hands-on that the reason why in times of conflict I would, close off and guard up, because I was trying to protect my heart. And I would rather risk it all than to get hurt. I would rather risk losing you. I would rather risk not talking to you for a couple days than to get hurt. Like, I was so scared of it. And so I would close off, shut down, block you out for sure. I would run away from you and the problem. And as our first marital therapist taught us, which sounds so simple now, but it was hard for me back then, to run towards the problem with you. And we can solve it together. Yeah.
What also helped me is you expressing to me of why you were protecting your heart and the fears that you had of abandonment and your childhood upbringing and how you felt growing up and stuff.
Yeah, and that was only possible because of the internal work, mainly in therapy for me. Because for me, and this is how I operate, and maybe it's not for everybody, but the most frustrating thing for me is confusion. It's not having clarity about a situation. It's not having a solution to an issue. It drives me crazy internally. So I couldn't understand why I kept repeating these things in these ways. I'm like, I know this is my wife. I know, my therapist, like, this is your wife. This is a safe space. I'm like, bro, I know, but I can't let her in. And then we broke it down and unpacked it as far as, well, think about all the ones who you've loved like you love your wife. They've left you. And so, of course, it's hard for you to trust to let someone in now, and so on and so forth.
I think, too, your biggest struggle is not being able to understand someone's side.
Yeah.
And sometimes the solution is the understanding. And because you were not able to understand somebody's side, you thought that, in fact, there was no solution. You relate solution to being something that's of an action. And it's not always that. It's something as simple as just understanding. And the fact that you were just incapable to understand was really what the problem was.
Yeah, and I was incapable to understand because I couldn't fathom that that is a possible solution.
Mm-hmm. It could all be so simple, babe.
But you'd rather
make
it hard. Was loving me like a battle, babe? And did we both end up with some scars? Lauren, we miss you, Lauren. Yeah, I'm just sitting with what you said, because you're right. And I still need to hear that and implement that today, that philosophy of the solution sometimes is just an understanding. It's just showing empathy, compassion, showing up. It doesn't always need to be this solution, grand, so to speak. Yeah, grand gesture and go big or go home mentality. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what, like, whenever we were at in differences, the solution for me was just understanding where you were coming from. And you never felt like we were having a solution because you could never understand where I was coming from. Or you never felt that there was a solution because you were never able to understand where I was coming from.
Yeah, and again, this is all like present day for us in our therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, really, this is like a couple weeks ago. I came to this realization, and he was able to really help us both understand the severity and the overall truth in what you just said. He had a great delivery with his message for sure. Side note, we're also trying to get our marital therapist to come on who can relate. I would love for him to sit in, with us, and for you guys
summarize all of our
for you guys to put a face in a face to a name and see the other photo of Michael Jordan, because that guy is the Michael Jordan of therapy. I'm telling you. Well.
Yeah, I will forever be grateful for him.
Yeah. Same.
I think to conclude it is, no matter how healthy a relationship is, it takes work to maintain it. And you just have to have a level of communication with your partner, a level of understanding, compassion, empathy, openness, all of the above. And you guys have to really look at each other as a team and not the opposing side.
Right.
And it's not always you against him or me against you. It's us against the issue. And as long as we can tackle those together, and just communicate as much as possible and be open to, the other person's perspective, I think that we will always be in a healthy relationship.
Yeah, it made me think about all the times I used to say, like, it's not about me, it's not about you, it's not about team me, team you, it's team us, But I would just say that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really practice what I preached.
If we're on the same team, why are you keeping score?
I know. I'm trying to win. Yeah, that
I was like, you can't be on the same team and keep score.
I know.
But
it was the idea was fun for me, and it's one of those things where I would say it, but I didn't trust to be able to believe it.
Yeah. And for the people that are toxic and have toxic relationships, there's hope to change that and create new healthy patterns that work, not just for you, but for your relationship. And knowing what to implement, when to implement it, and how to is something that you just kind of have to talk through with your partner.
Yeah.
And see what works for both of you guys.
Yeah.
Because what works for us doesn't work for everybody.
It may not. And maybe one more thing to conclude. Honey, do you think you looked at your camera enough on this episode?
I try to look a lot at my camera.
Okay. Couple of
It
comments.
helps. It actually helps. So whenever we film, the last few times, aside from the first 2 times.
What's that?
How many times did we film?
1, 2, 4, 7.
Yeah.
Carried.
I think that's actually... Well, anyways, it's much easier to look at the camera when it's here versus here. And when we were filming with just one camera, it's really hard to just like dead on look at the camera, and it's awkward and uncomfortable, and I'm not good in front of the camera, so
well, and also too,
shy.
like, yeah, but it's one of those things where we forget the cameras are on. We're just like talking.
We're having a conversation.
Yeah.
But when there's a camera directly in front of me, it's easier to look at here and there than to,
Yeah, I just want to say something to the people who had a couple comments saying it's awkward that she doesn't look at the camera. Let me think before I speak here, because
it is. I mean, it's probably awkward. I get it.
No. Here's the thing, love. And for those people who commented that, I hope to God that you guys had way more takeaways from our episode about what relationship looks like for us, because we're doing this as a favor. This is free game. Everyone's welcome. We're letting you guys be a fly on our wall. For the people who were like, I can't help but just notice she didn't look at the camera, you may have some other issues that you need to address aside from worrying about who's looking at the camera and where. Turn off the camera, turn up the volume, and take your notes. Don't attack my what? You see
babe,
what I'm saying?
But in their
your boy, I'm hot, babe.
In their defense, there's a connection that's happening with the audience and us. And the more I can engage with the audience, the more connected they feel. So if I'm just completely like this, which that last one I was, it's a little bit hard. So I get it. I understand. And here we are with 3 cameras, and now I'm looking. There we go.
I guess. Just have more takeaways is all I'm trying to say. This could actually,
I don't take it personal, so.
This could help. Anyways. All right. Well, I think that is it.
Can you look at the camera when you say that?
Sure. Let's not let a couple of bad apples ruin it for the bunch here.
You guys are not bad apples.
We just wanted to let you all know, again, kind of the ins and outs of our past, our present, and where we're trying to be for our future in our marriage.
Mm-hmm. We're still developing our healthy patterns and ways we can communicate and just be better together.
Yeah. And part of that is being fully transparent with you all and, continuing that dialogue, which is something that is a high priority for us every time we do an episode together, is just to let you guys in on a little bit of what's worked for us, what hasn't worked for us, and more than anything, really, just letting you guys know, like, appreciate the couple goals and all this other stuff, but like, it's a lot of work. At least in my book. Maybe it's not for you, honey. I don't know. It was a different kind of work.
It was, it's a different kind of work. It was a lot of work to get you to see certain things and hold that space and be patient and stuff. But it was worth it.
Yes. 100%. So until next time, we're taking requests on what you all would like us to talk about again. You can DM either of us, comment in the section below. Make sure you like, if you like it. Make sure you subscribe. Turn on your notifications. I mentioned the consultation stuff. Shay and I are both available. I'm available one-on-one. Are you available one-on-one, honey?
I prefer to do it with you. Not right now.
Okay.
Not right now.
I was going to say, because I got to tell Chrysia that she's going to make your own one-sheeter.
No, not right now.
While we're in the lab. Creating this consultation business. Okay. But either way, we're here to help. You can, again, message us and we can schedule you out. It's all via Zoom. We'd love to see everyone face to face as much as we can during this ongoing pandemic. And I had like 10 send-offs. I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm done.
It was better than the last time. The last time I was like, for like 30 minutes. You were just like talking.
Oh, I was thanking everyone?
You were like it was a forever conclusion of the episode.
I was just in my gratitude moment, babe.
Oh, okay.
Let me live. Okay. Appreciate you guys.
I appreciate you.
Oh.
And you guys.
Appreciate you, playa. Chicago's looking at us like, okay, time to go.
Like, it's time for my bone. And I'm hungry. And I want to go outside for a walk. All right, guys. Thanks.